Woo! What a weekend of college baseball. Tennessee absolutely unloaded on Ole Miss. Texas Tech had two dramatic walk-offs against Texas, and they were both by the same guy. And LSU broke the bats out against Florida. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, baseball writer for Sports Illustrated. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. And on today's episode, recapping that crazy weekend in college baseball. You have to start with Tennessee. So Tennessee, I think top 10 Tennessee goes into Swayze Field to take on number one Ole Miss. And this is a good Ole Miss team. So this offense, top 8 in the country when it comes to runs per game. Almost 10 runs per game. Tennessee goes in there, sweeps the series, okay? So offensively, just something where Tennessee looks like a juggernaut. Hits 5 home runs on Friday night. Goes out there, puts up a total of 26 runs on this Ole Miss team, holds them to 7. Their average on the season for runs per game is almost 10. Tennessee holds them to 7 on the weekend at home. And so the big thing here, okay, so going into this thing, you talked about, all right, well, Tennessee hasn't had a true road test. A lot of those Southern teams, other than some sort of neutral site, they play a lot of home games to start the year because there's a lot of schools like your Rhode Islands, like your Yales, that have to travel because they can't play home games until mid-March. So Tennessee hadn't really had to deal with like a true road game, a true hostile environment. Swayze Field sold out for all 3 games. Did not matter. Tennessee's rotation. They've got 2 freshmen and a sophomore. They all made their SEC debuts last weekend. And so the question was, how are they going to do on the road? Well, Ole Miss has a great lineup top to bottom. I know that personally. I saw them at Auburn last week. Completely stopped them. Tennessee's offense, how would they do outside of home? 5 home runs on the weekend, 26 for the series. So if you're looking at this now as far as what happens in college baseball, so first, Tennessee is your number 1 team in the country. Not because they beat the number 1, but because they have earned it. And Auburn head coach Butch Thompson has talked about this with me before, about so much of rankings early in the season are based off of what you did last year. Well, Tennessee lost, made the College World Series, lost 7 guys to the draft off that team. So a lot of people kind of expected, okay, you lost 7 guys to the draft. They don't have preseason All-American Blade Tidwell. He's got a shoulder injury. So we're going to start them off pretty low. They have risen to number 1. Flip that around, Ole Miss. The book is out on Ole Miss, right? The offense is very good against mid-level and lower-level starters, but if you have elite talent, you can't necessarily do it. They can hit home runs. They got 4 of them over the weekend, but they couldn't get enough base runners, and they couldn't generate offense from the top of the lineup, especially against Tennessee's starters. And Tennessee's starters, so those 3 guys, the 2 freshmen and the sophomore, 20 2/3 innings, 8 hits, 2 runs, 27 strikeouts. So Tennessee absolutely showed number 1 team in the nation. Other teams in the SEC that answered questions. LSU. So LSU comes into the series against Florida, having lost, I believe, 4 of the previous 5 games, 3 of the previous 4. Lose on Friday night 7-2. That's the 4th loss in 5 games. There you go. And then from that point on, looked like a different team. Did not trail the rest of the weekend. One Saturday 16-4, one Sunday 11-2. So they struggled against Hunter Barco, who we've talked a lot about on this show, the ace for Florida. Struggled against him on Friday night. After him, opened the bats up. Just hit everything, hit it hard. And the thing with this LSU team is we hadn't necessarily seen, like, the offense has been great. We hadn't seen the defense and we hadn't seen the pitching show up. So the defense, going into the weekend, LSU only had 3 games out of their first 22 where they didn't have an error. So not playing great defense, not dominating the routine plays. Goes out there against Florida, 3 games, no errors. Just absolutely takes care of business. And then pitching-wise, something where the Saturday and Sunday starters, outside of like the Friday night guy, Saturday and Sunday starters hadn't necessarily held up. Together, they go 11 2/3 innings, only allow 3 runs. And the bullpen steps up as well. And so it's something where this LSU team looks kind of scary now. They have a chance, not saying it's going to happen, but they have a chance to contend for Omaha. I expect at the very least they'll be in the contention to get a regional at some point in time. Other SEC teams that had notable performances, South Carolina. So I don't know which South Carolina team is real. They go out there, they win 2 out of 3 against Vandy. And I'm like, okay, Vandy's a really good baseball team, really good baseball program. They won a series earlier in the year against then number 1 Texas. And part of that is Texas is taking a step back. We'll get to that in the next segment. But I'm like, okay, that looks great. At the same time, this same South Carolina team has had a 5-game losing streak already. They've only played 20 games. They got swept by Clemson. They got swept at Tennessee. I don't necessarily think getting swept at Tennessee is that bad of a thing, because Tennessee is the number 1 team in the country, and I think for a reason. But it's something where I'm trying to figure out this South Carolina team. And I want to believe that the South Carolina team is better than the Clemson and Tennessee sweeps, because they battled injuries early. But that they've just yo-yoed back and forth between extremes, and I don't have a true idea of who this is, who the South Carolina team is. So, yeah, they lose the opener 10-0 to Vandy. They come back. They win 8-2 on Saturday, and then they win on Sunday. And it's just like, I'm trying to figure out what this team is. I don't really know. At some point in time, we'll get there. And in just a minute, I do want to talk about some of the teams that are not in the SEC that had great weekends. And let's talk about Texas Tech beating Texas. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Athletic Greens. This partner of ours has a product I use literally every single day. I started taking Athletic Greens because I have celiac disease, autoimmune disorder. I can't digest. I can't eat gluten. So I have to go gluten-free, and it's not because I want to. It's because I have to. But to go along with celiac disease, I struggle to absorb nutrients both from food and from medicine. And so I've been taking vitamins, I've been taking supplements for years, and I've always struggled to try to get, the right amount of iron and things like that. And Athletic Greens has been a game changer for me. So Athletic Greens is 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens that you get from 1 scoop. So you take 1 scoop of Athletic Greens, you put it into 8 to 12 ounces of water. I do cool water every morning, drink it on an empty stomach, and it absolutely goes well. It's less than 1 gram of sugar. There's no artificial stuff in there. It's all natural. And for me, very big, it's gluten-free, but if you need it, it's also dairy-free, it's vegan, it's paleo, it's keto-friendly. So it can help a lot of different people. And like I said, it's become the one thing I do every single day to take care of myself. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially as we head into flu and cold season. It's 1 scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/MLB Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Boy, Texas Tech had a weekend. Kurt Wilson for Texas Tech has to be, if he has to buy himself a beer in Lubbock for the rest of his life, that city has failed him. So, Texas Tech versus Texas. If you'll remember, we previewed that last week on College Baseball Tuesday because these two teams have won the last 5 conference championships. And so whoever wins this series was going to be in the driver's seat. So, okay, Friday goes to extras. Kurt Wilson is on third. The Texas closer is in, Aaron Nixon. And if you watch, and there's a great video out there, I think it's from John Boy Media where they break it down, but if you watch Aaron Nixon, he does this thing when he gets the ball. You know, he gets the ball and he looks down and he rocks. And you can time it. It's the exact same thing every time. And then he looks up. And this is like after he gets a sign, the ball, the rocking while looking down, he looks up, delivers the pitch. So Kurt Wilson's watching, and Kurt Wilson's making notes. And the third base coach comes over and talks to Kurt and is like, hey, I want you to see this. Time this out. He gets up 0-2, and I'm guessing he just forgets there's runners on base. He never looks over to third. Kurt Wilson, like when Nixon gets the sign and goes to stand up, Kurt Wilson just starts walking towards home. And he breaks for home, and he gets a walk-off steal of home in the 10th inning. By the time the pitcher looks up, he has already slid across home plate, and his teammates are already out of the dugout to celebrate. By the time the pitcher looks up and sees it. Great video. Go find it. But then, on Saturday, they go to extras, and they load the bases with 2 outs in the 10th, and he comes up to bat. And guess what Kurt Wilson does? Hits a walk-off grand slam. I mean, Texas won on Sunday, and nobody even cares. Because Texas Tech won 2 games in dramatic fashion. And as a position player, I can't think of a better way to to win 2 games in a series than walk-off, steal of home, and walk-off grand slam. So Texas Tech has a great weekend. The big thing here, like I said, this puts them in the driver's seat in the conference. They've been kind of under the radar, but I think now they're going to catch their stride as they come into conference play. And remember, they have the preseason player of the year in Jace Young. So a lot of skill, a lot of good stuff there. I think they're going to do well. Some more interesting stories from the weekend that I found. Miami. So Miami won its first series against Boston College in conference play. Then they went on the road last week, beat Clemson. This weekend they swept North Carolina. And so it's their first sweep since opening weekend. And really they hadn't put together a full series yet. You would see them, they'd lose an opener, or they'd get blown out in a finale. They lost a series to Florida in the pitching. But Carson Palmquist, who Andre and I talked about for the ACC preview, we needed to leave in the bullpen, but that's fine. He went in there, great start on Friday night, and then Saturday and Sunday, the bullpen combined throws 17 innings on Saturday and Sunday, and only 5 runs. 4 of those runs were once Game 3 was already in hand. So, I mean, was Friday. Friday while the series was already in hand. So, Miami looks good going into April. They're ahead of everybody in the conference except maybe Louisville. Dallas Baptist is another school, and this is smaller conference school, obviously, the Missouri Valley Conference, but they have a great resume. So they have a lot of good, they have a lot of wins against good teams. They're number 1 in RPI right now. They just faced Maryland, their first ranked opponent, won 2 out of 3. So they split the first 2 games, and then won on Sunday, defused the 9th inning rally to win it. And so they're in the top 25 this week. And something there is they're probably going to host a regional because the Missouri Valley Conference doesn't have another team that's high in the RPI. And they don't have another team, but they don't have any really bad teams that are going to bring down strength of schedule. So just because Dallas Baptist goes into conference play, their RPI shouldn't drop anything significant. And so when it's time to pick regional sites, they're going to have one of the better resumes as far as difficulty in the season, despite not having a ton of ranked opponents. So you love to see that. And then really interesting factoid that I saw, Army has been playing baseball against Navy for 121 years. They had a doubleheader on Sunday in Annapolis, and they won both games in shutouts, 7-0 and 19-0. And that's just the 10th and 11th time that Army has had shutouts in 121 years against Navy. Seems really odd that it just that amount of time, it's rarely happened, but it absolutely happened. And so Army's in a position, they're 7-15 right now, which doesn't look great, but their non-conference schedule's done. They have a dominant performance against their number one rival. So entering conference play, it looks like they're positioned momentum-wise to recover and do well as far as the rest of the schedule and getting into the regionals. In just a minute, I want to tell you about some of the games to look forward to this upcoming weekend. But first, YouTube, this is just us right now. The podcast people are all listening to ads. I want to say thank you for being here. If you are not a subscriber, if you would do us a favor and like and subscribe, it really does help the show a ton, believe it or not. When you look at the analytics and when you dig in, the more people that subscribe to the show, the more likely it is to put this show in other people's feeds and present it to them. And that's the thing that we're trying to do to grow this show. You subscribing does really do a lot. So thank you very much for doing that. If you are subscribed, thank you for coming back. I appreciate you watching all the way through. If you have anything for the show, if you have questions, if you have guys you want to hear talked about, schools you want to hear talked about, programs you want to hear, both college or major league. This is a minor league podcast, but we do talk college ball. We do talk major league teams from time to time. I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. The show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm, or you can email us lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com. Thank you all for being here. All right, looking ahead at games this weekend. There's 3 big series that I want to watch. The first one is Oregon going to UCLA. So we talked about Stanford being the favorite to win the Pac-12 this year. Well, Oregon has a series win against Stanford. Oregon's also already beat USC and Utah. So Oregon going to UCLA. UCLA has not had a 15-8 right now. Haven't had a dominant season, but they just won a series at Arizona. They went 2-1 in Houston at one of the tournaments. I think it was the Shriners Hospital tournament. And so this is going to be a good test right now of who is in the driver's seat in the Pac-12. I like Oregon to take 2 out of 3 on this, and for Oregon to be the favorite to not only win the Pac-12, but probably either them or Oregon State contend to go to Omaha. Another one you're going to watch, especially if you're a fan of pitching. We've talked about this. Florida State is hosting Notre Dame. So this is conference play. This is division play, the ACC Atlantic. But Notre Dame started off division play sweeping NC State, the same NC State that went to the College World Series last year. But then after that, they've lost 4 straight games. Now they go into Tallahassee with that. What we've talked about is the best rotation in college baseball, that 1, 2, 3, 4 Florida State being so good. So Florida State, 16-7 right now. They've won their first 3 series in conference play. So they look to be in the driver's seat in the ACC. I have them in my group of 8 to make Omaha for the College World Series. But going to be a great matchup there. And whenever I'm not watching this next series, I'm going to have Florida State on. But the number one series for me, intrastate rivalry, Tennessee versus Vanderbilt. So Tennessee is going to Nashville to play Vanderbilt. Obviously, we've talked about Tennessee, 23-1, undefeated in the conference, best team in the nation, number 1 best offense, one of the best team ERAs and pitching staffs in the country. Vanderbilt just lost the series at South Carolina. Very uncharacteristic. They're 19-4 right now. 2 of their 4 losses were this weekend. So they're out for blood. These teams have been rivals for a long time. These 2 teams finished first in the East last year, like first and second in the East. So the winner of this series, and I think right now if you handicap it, the easy money is to say, yeah, Tennessee's going to win this. Vanderbilt has a lot of position player talent, and if anybody can score to keep up with Tennessee, it's going to be somebody like a Vanderbilt. But that absolutely is going to be the matchup of the weekend. Have to watch that. Also, personal interest to me, I'm going to be watching Auburn travel to Baton Rouge to play LSU for 3 games. That's a Thursday through Saturday. I kind of like Thursday through Saturday better than Friday through Sunday. I don't know what it is about it, but I like the Thursday through Saturday series a little better. But I'm going to be watching to see what Auburn does against LSU and against an LSU offense, as we talked about earlier in today's show, can just absolutely put up giant numbers on a pitching staff. Auburn has to go out there. Auburn has decent hitters. Auburn can put up runs as well. The question is, can Auburn's pitching hold up and contain the damage enough to let Auburn's bats keep them in the game? We saw the series lost to Ole Miss. We saw 2 of the 3 games Auburn's bats couldn't keep up with Ole Miss's offense. Auburn spent all their runs in the second game. They scored like 22 in game 2. Should have saved some of those for games 1 and 3. But so the question there is going to be, can Auburn's pitching staff contain LSU enough for the offense to keep up? A lot of questions. I don't know. I think we'll know more after tonight's start for Auburn. They've got the 2 guys they're thinking about throwing on Saturday. They've got both of them throwing on Tuesday night in their midweek game. Trying to figure out one of them's coming back with a painful blister under his fingernail. That sounds pretty awful. So we'll see what happens there. If you have questions for the show, again, on Monday, we do mailbags. I am on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. The show is on Twitter at Locked On Farm, or you can email us, lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com. Tomorrow, I've got a really interesting show, something a little different. I hopped on with our friends from Locked On Astros, and we did a deep dive on shortstop Jeremy Pena. Probably going to replace Carlos Correa at shortstop for the Astros this year. Obviously, you're calling up a rookie to man the Keystone for a contending team. Kind of a big deal. So I've got that conversation for you tomorrow. But until then, this has been Locked On MLB Prospects.